PhoenixKnight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the Can You Take the Heat cookbook. Stone Cold's Texas toast for the entree last week was pretty good. Typical French toast recipe. But this week we're on to the dessert, Kane's red velvet cake. First up, let's tell the story. Like Kane, this recipe is a little complex, and like Kane, the finished product is a work of art. You've got to be in the baking mood, but it is well worth the effort. Kane is one of the Federation's biggest and most powerful stars, and this cake, like the Big Red Machine, is stronger than a government mule. Kane and that whole story with the Brothers of Destruction has always been one of my favorite storylines of all time that WWE ever put out, lasting for probably just north of 20 years, something like that. Actually, no, not quite 20 years, but it definitely lasted for quite a long time. Anyway, the ingredients for this recipe, I could sit here reminiscing all day about the Brothers of Destruction storyline, but we've got some baking to do. The ingredients are waiting for us over at the table, so let's move in that direction. You'll probably hear the oven chirping a little bit, but the temperature just came up to 350, which is where we want it to be for this recipe. And you can see a clear dividing line here because we've got a two-part recipe. So in order to make the cake itself, we need a 10 1/4 ounce of fudge marble, a package of fudge marble cake mix, a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 eggs, 1½ cups of buttermilk, and a 1 ounce bottle of red food coloring. I always wanted to make this recipe when I was younger, but the food coloring always made my mom hesitate on that. But we are going to go ahead and make the recipe here as is. For the frosting, we need 5 tablespoons of flour, a cup of milk, 2 sticks of butter that'll hopefully be softened by the time I need them, 1 cup of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now, you might see down here in shot that I actually I do have a container of pre-made frosting as well. I'm going to try the frosting recipe once, but if I end up ruining it, I'm going to use the vanilla frosting as a backup option. So let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. I do have my hand mixer plugged in just in shot down here. We will be using that shortly. So to make the cake, we're going to start off with a large bowl, where we're going to start off by combining the cake mix and the baking soda. So we've got our cake mix right here, our fudge marble cake mix, of course. Along with what looks to be a packet of cocoa, which I will remember to add the cocoa once I find my scissors right here. Okay. Start moving some of this stuff over to the garbage. Along with the packet of cocoa, which I should be able, okay, I was going to say I should be able to just tear that. One other thing I'm going to do before I go too much further, off shot, I'm actually going to clip the recipe down, as my book is quite old. My copy of this cookbook is quite old, and I need to stop jarring the camera. Let's do that. That way the tripod stays in place. My copy of this cookbook is fairly old and falling apart in spots, so I want to make sure the cookbook doesn't go too far on me. Then we'll take our teaspoon of baking soda. Looks like we can open it to the side, but I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not going to do it that way. Okay, so we've got our baking soda. We need a teaspoon of that. That's a little bit of a generous teaspoon, but I can probably work with it. Let's see, we'll put that all the way up here. Then we'll give that a quick mix up. Okay. That'll do it for a cursory combination job. Now we're going to add the wet ingredients. So I've got the eggs right here just out of shot. That can hit the garbage. Trying to make sure we are minus shell in here. There's one egg. And our second egg. Okay. Oh, hang on. I saw a piece of shell fall in there, so I need to get that out. I'm going to have to move the camera out of the way so I can get to a spoon. There we go. We're scooping out a little bit of the cake mix, but I want to make sure the piece of shell is out. Because I don't want any I don't want any eggshell to get in there later. Then we'll take our 1.5 cups of buttermilk, which I've got the buttermilk right here. We'll give that a shake. We'll pour that into our 1.5 cup measuring cup. See if I can scrape a bit more of that out. Okay. Buttermilk can go back in the fridge, and the last thing, actually, the eggs can go back in as well once I get those closed up nice and tight. And then the last thing we need is our food coloring. Now, I doubt I need this whole tube of it. So we'll just do something like that. Okay. Definitely don't need to go nuts with the food coloring here. So now that we've got all the wet ingredients in there, this is where our hand mixer comes in. So we want to blend this on low until moistened, then beat on high for 2 minutes. So here's my 5-second warning before I turn the mixer on. Alright, it's now moistened, so another warning before I turn it on high. This is mostly so I can make sure I've got a 2-minute timer ready to go. I'm going to be timing it on my watch. So here's another 5-second warning before I turn the mixer all the way up. Ooh, without sending it flying preferably. Alright, the timer on my watch is actually going crazy. My hand actually kind of hurts a little bit, but we are done with the timer. So now we're going to bring a cake pan. We're going to bring our cake pans in shot. The next thing we need to do here is we need to grease and flour our cake pan. Now I've got another cake pan ready to go off shot, but these are actually pretty sizable cake pans. So we'll start off with the one and we'll see if we need a second one. So I'm also going to show you how to grease and flour a cake pan. I just had to look up a quick video on how to do it. You can use either shortening or unsalted butter. I'm going to use unsalted butter. So I'm going to open the aforementioned stick of unsalted butter, and it's a good thing I've got a sandwich bag ready to go here. So we'll take the unsalted butter and we'll spread a layer on the bottom and sides. I was getting ready to spray this out of habit, but the video I watched specifically said that oil-based sprays should not be used. I'll provide a link to the video I used to look it up on about 5 minutes notice. I'll put that in the description down below. Okay. Let me see if I can get along the edges here a little bit better. There's kind of a thin layer I'm having a little bit of a problem getting to right along the extreme edges of the pan. But I think that's probably about as much as I'm going to be able to do with that. So that can go in the sandwich bag. And that stick of butter can go in the fridge. I'll wash my hands real quick. So that now I can take 2 tablespoons of flour. That's a bit of a generous 2 tablespoons, but we can work with it. Get that into my hand. And then we'll flour the pan. I'll spread it around so I get better coverage. Okay. Hopefully that spot along the outer edges isn't going to come back to haunt me. Let me make sure I get some flour coverage around all of that. Which I think that's probably about as good as I'm going to do with that. Flour can go back over toward the rest of the ingredients because we will need that. So now let's see what happens with the batter as we pour it into our greased and floured pan. Oh yeah, it looks like I only need, from the looks of it, it looks like I only need the 1 cake pan. Like I said, the recipe called for 2, but these were looking like pretty big. But these were pretty big cake pans, so we're only going to need 1 cake pan from the looks of it. And I think we've got most of it scraped out there. Okay. So that can go toward the... So that big bowl can go toward the cake, can go toward the dishes. I'm just consolidating what dishes I have so far in our big in the big bowl that we use to mix. Do a little quick speck of cleanup there. So now the next thing we want to do is we're going to put this in the oven for 30 to 35 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean. So I'll bring the camera out of the way so I can put this in. We'll set a timer for 35 minutes. There we go. And we're not going to sit and watch that whole thing bake. What we are going to do instead is we're going to start working on... Actually, do we want to start working on the frosting now? I think we do. The frostings are going to start us at the stove at our very weird angle on the burner that we're going to use. So we're going to start off by whisking the flour and milk in a saucepan over medium-low heat. So we'll take our flour. We need 5 tablespoons of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We didn't need the tablespoons or anything else, did we? No. And our cup of milk. Ooh, easy does it. Let me see if I can do a quick wipe up before, oh boy. See if I can do a quick wipe up before I start the burner. I saw some of it seep through. Hopefully it's not going to be too big a deal. Let me see if I can lift this burner clean out without getting the... it's just a little speck in there. It shouldn't cause too many problems. Plus, we're not going to be setting it over any kind of real high heat anyway. We're going to be setting that over medium-low heat. So with that in mind, that's going to be about I think we're going to go to about a 3 on that. Trying to figure out where I want to put this milk back, and I think I want to put it back right about there. So we want to whisk that until it's smooth. See if I can wipe up the sides a little bit more as well. If I can get this. That didn't really help. I'll just leave it and trust that it's going to boil and trust that it'll boil off. I'll keep working on whisking that down, but we are going to watch the... Given that this is a critical part of the recipe, we are going to watch the frosting work happen in real time. So that cake pan, this other cake pan that I didn't need, can get put back away. So bear with me while I see to that real quick. Perfect. I'm just keeping an eye on my timer on my phone as well, because I've got something else that I'm cooking that's normally part of prep. But as I'm playing around with my schedule a bit, I'm moving some things around. And the prep, that's normally a step I do on Sunday, but we are going, like I said, I'm playing around with my schedule, so I'm keeping an eye on that timer as well. I'm actually going to put my watch back on, since that looks like it's getting pretty well smooth. Since that's pretty well smooth, but I do want that to come up to a boil. That's what we're waiting for next. And it's definitely starting to boil. Actually, my throat's starting to get a little bit dry, so let me go get my drink real quick. Okay, it's not quite boiling yet, but there are definitely bubbles. There are definitely bubbles, like it's going to be starting to come up to a boil soon. Well, not soon. I'll keep an eye on the time for that, though. But once it comes up to a boil, I do want to whisk and stir it for 2 more minutes at that point, or until the sauce is thickened. I've got a lid ready as well, because the next step in the instruction is going to be to cover and refrigerate it. Which I'm just going to check and make sure. Yep, I've got plenty of space in the... I've got a spot in the fridge where that can go. Let me see if I can get some of the plastic away from that, though. I'll push that back. I'm just going to see if I can make a little bit safer room in the fridge. Let's do that. Okay. I think we should be able to make that work now. I'm just going to pull something out for dinner tonight as well. Wow, holy crap, this is starting to thicken on me. I should probably be whisking this a lot more. Okay, that got very thick in a hurry on me. Okay, I'm going to call that there. Because I have a feeling that I just let that sit for way too long. Because that got thick in a hurry on me. So I'm going to see if I can scrape some of that out. Get some of that out of the whisk. Looks like we got most of it out, but I don't think we got all of it. It looks like we got enough of it out, though. So now I need to go find the lid that I commandeered for this. And that will go straight into the fridge. We'll let that chill. And it closes perfectly, so it doesn't look like I will have any interference there. So now we need to wait for that to chill. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break before we go to the next step of the recipe. I ended up glossing over a little bit as I've had the camera off and been working. But after the cake came out of the oven, we wanted to let that cool for 10 minutes. Then we removed the cake from the pan to a wire rack and let it cool completely. The milk mixer has been chilling. So now we'll start with our stand mixer once I get the paddle attachment on there. Which I want there we go. I got this stand mixer from my parents over Christmas, but one thing I picked up was a better paddle mixture, it was a better paddle attachment than the one it came with. So I'll put that in there. And now we'll start off with creaming the butter and the sugar. So this is where we hope the butter's softened enough. Okay, we've got the 2 sticks of butter, which I am using unsalted butter rather than margarine. Okay. So now we'll let that mix up for about 30 seconds while I bring the sugar over. Okay, I think I started that a little bit faster than I was expecting to, but now we'll add the cup of sugar in. Let's get a bigger measuring cup out for this, because I don't trust pouring it into that. And I'll pour this over the sink as well. Okay. All right. So now we'll add that in. We'll scrape the butter back in. And we'll mix that in until it's light and fluffy. Let's unlock this. And now we want the chilled milk mixture to come in. So here's what's going to happen once I get the milk mixture in here. I'm going to beat the milk mix. I'm going to beat this whole thing for about 10 minutes. Then I'll stir in the vanilla during this. I'm not going to bore you guys with the entire stir of the milk mixture, but we are going to find out if the frosting took or if I'm using what I bought from the grocery store this morning. Because I did pick that up as a backup plan. Just in case this totally failed. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to put you guys through watching the entire mix, but we will come back and take a look at the finished product where I'll go through the final verdict of, am I using this frosting or am I using the store frosting, the frosting I bought? Okay. Just giving my hands a quick wash. Does it say a speed to mix it on? Of course it doesn't. Alright, so we'll bring this down. We'll lock it in. I'll get a timer for 10 minutes ready, and then we'll come back. We'll come back when this is all ready to go. We have frosting over here that looks like it actually turned out pretty well. And we have a cake that also looks like it turned out. Would anybody like to guess what our next step is going to be? If you guessed frosting the cake, then you win the prize, which is my eternal love and admiration for about, well, 5 minutes. When I'll turn the camera off so I can frost the cake, and then I will show you guys why I do not get paid for my artistic talents. For not exactly being artistically inclined, admittedly, that could have been a whole lot worse. But the only way we're going to find out how good it turned out to be is if I cut this up and I meet you guys over at my desk for the taste test. I've got a slice of the cake right here. Let's give this a taste and see what I think of it. It's a little bit liquidy, which I'm not sure if that's a problem with the oven I've got or what the story might be here, but it definitely looks like the frosting all turned out. It's really good, and I'm definitely very happy with how the frosting turned out. That was the part that scared me, because when I watched another YouTuber make this recipe, he had problems with the frosting. So that was definitely one lesson I wanted to pull from when I made this recipe, which is why I normally do a lot of these recipes, at least the important parts, in real time. And there was quite a bit of this recipe that we did in real time, but I'm very happy with the finished product. That's another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books, and another month of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week we'll be in a new cookbook, but we'll have more on that during Pinot with Phoenix on Wednesday. A lot of great stuff coming up on the channel. Later this afternoon, we're going to be doing a playthrough of Undaunted 2200 Callisto by Osprey Games. And tomorrow morning, we're going to be playing game number 9 on my War Room list as we play Space Empires 4X by GMT Games. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.